Welcome back to Wrestling Tonight. Hit the ropes, take some bumps. My name is Chad. This is
live from the No Sell Studios at the Ace of the Tavern, Stephen Acefield, and another week of Wrestling Tonight. Week 1 was well received. We're hoping week 2 is just as well received.
Yeah, man, we're trying to get you, set the table for you guys for the week ahead, but mainly talk about the big stories that everyone wants to talk about, all the things in the news. If it's big in pro wrestling, we're hopefully going to get you covered on that. If you guys want, please subscribe to the channel. If you go to theturnbuckletavern.com, you can follow along with anything. But if you're on YouTube right now watching us, give the video a like, comment below, tell us what you think of the show. Tell us if you want to see anything else from us. And most of all, spread the word. Let your wrestling friends know that we're here. And, we just we want to become that place on Mondays that you come to be like, man, I got to get caught up. I have to have my finger on the pulse of wrestling. So come to Wrestling Tonight every Monday, 7 p.m. Me and Ace will try and get you taken care of.
Yeah, and it's an impossibility to watch all the wrestling, so we're going to do it for you guys. We're going to put it in one little neat package in 60 minutes so you guys can walk away and know everything's going on so you can pick and choose what you want to watch. Because like I said, there's too much for one person to watch in a 7-day week.
Yeah, dude, there's so much, man. It's hard to kind of whittle this down to the true stories that we want to give time to, but we've got 3 big stories to kind of hit you guys with. You ready, Ace?
I am.
Let's get to the big 3.
Here we are, man. Wrestle Kingdom happened last week, and some of us stayed up really late watching it. It ruined the next 3 days for myself, but it was well worth it. I made it quite the yearly tradition where I sit up and watch. So got to bed at 6:45 a.m., woke up at 9 a.m. for work, and I was every bit as miserable as you can imagine. But the wrestling, we'll get into the story here. The main thing at the top, Sasha debuting, happened pretty early in the card. We kind of predicted, had her finger on the pulse, challenged Kairi immediately. And as ill-received as the debut was, it still was very meaningful to see her cross that threshold of not being in WWE. It was kind of surreal.
It was extremely surreal. You're talking about someone, I know she had a little bit of an independent career prior to going to the PC and everything with NXT, but you're talking about someone that really didn't enter into the wrestling stratosphere, the wrestling consciousness until she went to NXT. So this is someone we've never, it's very odd to see one of those Stanford bred wrestlers show up on another major promotion. It's very rare in wrestling if you really think about it. So to see Sasha pop up, she came out with a new hairdo, fire hairdo. She had the big head, almost like a, some sort of crown bedazzled, very
like a
Joshi
thing. It was very Cher-like. That's where it reminded, like Cher on tour.
Yeah, it's like Cher if she was a Joshi wrestler. It was so cool. What'd you, just right off the top, what did you think of her initial impact? Do you think it was well received?
Yeah, so again, you can point to the botch for the finish that she tried to do on Kairi, and you can say whose fault it was. Maybe it was Kairi, maybe it was Mercedes' fault. But at the end of the day, the debuts that are happening in Japan, it's not going to have the same effect immediately. It's not going to be that big pop where someone cashes the Money in the Bank briefcase. The crowd is very reserved and very respectful. So when someone's music hits, especially music they're not familiar with, there was a buzz in the air. It just doesn't sound the same. So when people are saying she didn't get a reaction, that's just not true. People were excited to see her. It just sounds a little bit different when you're in the Tokyo Dome rather than the Allstate Arena in Chicago.
Right. And there is some credence to Japanese fans are a little different than American fans. Obviously, they've been known for that. But at the same time, I did think it was a little lower than I expected. But it was me kind of battling with that. Is this just the Japanese crowd being the Japanese crowd? Or was this a lackluster debut? I kind of think it falls somewhere in the middle. I thought it was an incredible sight to behold, seeing her there. The botch, it's a new finisher, man. She's trying new stuff out. Things are going to happen. It's unfortunate that it kind of slipped up in that big debut stage, but shit happens. This is pro wrestling. I'm not going to hold that against Mercedes Moné.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, going back to the crowd thing, and they can get loud, as we'll talk about the match after with Will and Kenny Omega, because they do get whipped into a frenzy. But it takes a little bit for them to get warmed up, and I'm not making excuses for it. I just think for that moment, it happened really early on in the night. It was, I think, the third match on the card, and the fans were just, and they haven't been allowed to cheer. This is the first time, and they're all masked up. So it's going to take some time for them to get used to making noise. But even if you watch, the old Okada and Kenny Omega matches, it's silent at some points in the match where you would be watching that in the US and everybody would be going crazy and chanting. It's just a different feel. But I agree, it probably could have been louder if you compare it to the end of the night with the two matches with, Jay White and Okada, and also with Kenny and Will Ospreay.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of gauging off the reaction, is how they reacted to the other people. But you're talking about Osprey, Omega, Jay White, Okada. These are guys that are just Japanese cornerstones. This audience knows them. And for American fans, we're thinking, man, Sasha Banks is one of the biggest stars in the world. She is stateside, and for the most of the globe, I would agree. But we'll get into Dave Raves a little later. But Dave did come out and say, like, she has to put some time in for this crowd to really get behind her, because they probably know who she is, but they don't feel the level of star power that the American audience does.
Yeah, and I think a big piece is going to be the in-ring work, and I think she's shown the ability to go out there and really let her in-ring work speak for her, what she's able to do. And looking at her promos, that's not what she's known for. It's about the in-ring product, and we've seen her on big stages. So I think that match with Kyrie at Battle in the Valley is going to be really great. It's a good gauge about her mindset going in and what she wants to accomplish on this short or maybe long tenure that she's having across the Japanese platforms, whether it be New Japan Pro Wrestling or Stardom.
Yeah, one of the more interesting things for me with this whole Sasha situation, Mercedes Moné, we're just going to bounce back and forth, man. Bear with us. But Mercedes, the one intriguing thing with her for me is the whole aspect of the promo. I think in WWE, for me, I know some people probably disagree, but for me, I always thought that the promo was kind of her weak spot. She sells her ass off. She's an incredible bell-to-bell wrestler. But when it comes to like the promo work, I always felt like she sounded a little rehearsed. So I think this could be one of those situations where when she's going into a company that isn't going to script out everything she has to say, she's going to sink or swim. And I think we're going to see an improvement in her promos by getting to really see the true Mercedes here.
That's a really good point. And, bridging that gap towards AEW, and there's been some conversation, and you guys in the flagship are pretty confident that she's showing up as the mystery partner, but we have a disagreement over on the dirt sheets. We got Sean Ross Sapp says absolutely she will be there. Dave Meltzer says no. Brian Alvarez says yes. You guys on the flagship believe that she'll be there.
Book it.
I know Marco on the Raw Down said that she won't. So everyone's all over the place, but there's going to be some truth to what's going on here. And I think at this moment, nobody knows but Mercedes herself about where she's going to be on Wednesday night. But the thing is that's been resonating in my head is, if she's not going to be in AEW, when will she be there? And if will she be there? I don't know if this is like the be all end all, but it feels like they've built it up to be the moment she debuts, whether it be in this match to just show up, because AEW very rarely makes references without delivering. And you heard her say, her being Britt Baker, saying something about boss. That can't be a coincidence.
That's very reminiscent of Darby dropping that best in the world line. I mean, was it as on the nose? No, but they know what they're doing, man. I feel like they know what they're doing. Do I think she's going to be the partner? Maybe, maybe not. Excuse me, but she's coming. I fully believe she will be there. The only thing that makes me in recent days kind of pause that she's going to be the partner Wednesday night is the fact that I don't know. I mean, we don't know the contractual obligations. We don't even know she could possibly have a contract with AEW, but it makes me wonder if AEW would get the rights to have her wrestle her first match outside of WWE prior to New Japan getting her to wrestle. So that's why I'm almost leaning like she shows up and she plays a part in the situation. Personally, if I'm going fantasy booking, I know we don't do that a lot here on Wrestling Tonight. We're just straight news. But if I'm fantasy booking, I'm having Saraya and Mercedes go full Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. I'm wanting some outsiders. I'm wanting them being uber heels. It feels like we're teasing that with Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter really cutting promos, talking about we built this place. We had to put our time in. And now you have these outside people like Saraya coming in and trying to check them at the door. So we'll see how it goes, man. I'm very intrigued. We do have a clip, Ace, and I think this you're talking about. I'm with Alvarez on this. Dave is no way. When Dave said no way, she's not showing up, I was shocked by that.
Same.
But there is a video that's the New Japan post-fight presser, and some of the words she used in this is kind of really what got my mind wandering and leaning more towards she is going to be in AEW. But let's throw to that clip.
I am Mercedes Moné, and I am the CEO of New Japan and Stardom's women's division. And this is only just my first stop because I'm on a world domination tour. I know everybody is so jealous of Japan. You guys are so lucky to have me first, right? Are you guys happy that I'm here? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you in the back. Does anybody have any questions? Because I'm about to take the IWGP Women's Championship and take all over Japan.
What's your question? After the IWGP, what's next?
Great question. I mean, I'm here to make money. I'm about to make the yen go up. And then after that, I'll go collect the pesos. I'll collect the rubies, the gold, the dollars. We'll see who's next after New Japan.
The dollars. That's the key word, Ace. Now, where is she going to be making dollars in Impact? I don't think so.
Pesos too. I heard pesos, so maybe AAA gets a little deep into this. Maybe EMLL, who knows?
Yep.
But all we know is she's been officially moved to the alumni page for WWE, so all bets are off. But it's funny, and I feel like this is always going to be the case, more so than ever on this week. All three stories are so tied together, so because they all affect each other.
Yep.
And I think that's the craziest part, because we'll get to story number 3. But if things come to pass that we are going to be talking about, that could change the whole game almost, in the next 6 months. And we could be looking at a completely different landscape for even someone like Mercedes.
Absolutely, man. The wrestling landscape is very, very interesting and compelling right now. Like you said, the two big stories we're going to get to kind of allude to that. Now, WWE, talking about Meltzer's opinion, Alvarez, Sean Ross Sapp, all these people commenting on it. WWE thinks it's a short-term deal in New Japan. She's going to get it out of her system and then come back to Stamford. Like you said, she was moved to the alumni page, which with Tom, the Tavern's own Tom, that's a big deal, man. When that happens, you're signaling the red flag that they're officially gone. The Mercedes thing is probably one of the more compelling stories to come out of Wrestle Kingdom, but the match, we got to get to the big match, man. Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay. Kenny Omega coming out looking like an evil grand samurai with that entrance, man. And I know everyone's talking about, where is this Kenny in AEW? The intensity. I mean, he's got Roman Reigns' star power in New Japan, let's be honest. But when I hear that, I'm like, dude, do you really think this guy could do those type of matches every Dynamite? Like,
yeah,
no.
Well, a lot of the miles on his body are because of this run in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he built this legend of himself, and he's able to tap into it because, let's be honest, I think his true identity as a pro wrestler resides, and his heart resides in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't want to speak for the man, but I think his in-ring work speaks for itself when he's out there. But I think the match with Will Ospreay was, they're going to be chasing that match all year, and it's kind of funny. You got, I think on one of your lists, you had Bryan Danielson and Hangman from January 4th, the TBS debut for the world title. And it felt like everyone was chasing that match. And this match, in my opinion, don't want to speak for you, I feel like this match blew that one out of the water by a lot, where both men, I honestly, and I'm not just using hyperbole here, I've never seen a match like that. And it was honestly one of the best matches I've ever seen live, nevertheless, anytime. Both men gave everything they had. You could look at Will Ospreay. He was so bruised up, so bloody, so broken. And the finish, too, was shocking, because when he hit that one-winged angel, I'm sitting there and nobody's kicked out of the one-winged angel. You can make the debate that, Coda kicked out of it or whatever, but really, kayfabe-wise, no one's kicked out of it. I went in the match thinking Will Ospreay's winning. There's no way that Kenny's walking away with the IWGP US title, so I'm getting ready for 2 moments. Either Kenny wins the title or Will Ospreay kicks out of this finish. And when it happened, and they're just both laying there after the match, almost 40 minutes of just absolute carnage, I couldn't help but just be like, this is what pro wrestling is. And I know people want to say that all the time and wax poetic, but if you have not gone out and watched that match, do yourself a favor and do it, because it may bridge that gap, that may break that Fed brain, may break the rhythm of, I don't know how to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling. This might be your ticket.
Yeah, and we can throw all the kind of praise on this match for its technical just wizardry. The brutality of the moves, everything was perfectly done. Every move landed. There was no hiccups, but it was the emotion in this match for me. There was so much emotion. There was the moment where Ospreay's reaching out, like, man, it had me pulling on my heart. You wanted, and I'm the biggest Omega fan, but it's almost like you were pulling for Ospreay to prove himself to this guy. And I've heard it said that this is going to be a series of matches. So even with this match being a 40+ minute just barn burner, they kept things out of this match. They didn't show their full repertoire. That it's scary to think that they could one up this match. And back to like saying this is a match that we're going to be chasing for the rest of 2023 for a match of the year. I think a lot of people like to poo-poo and say recency bias because the match just happened, but no, I can't see this match being kicked out of the top 3, top 5 matches of the year. I just can't see it.
Really, and I don't see that happening either. And you mentioned the series of matches. I think it's already, you could just book it right now. Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega in some capacity, whether it be for the IWGP US title or a different championship or whatever is happening in both their lives at the time. Forbidden Door 2023. Like, that has to happen on US soil.
Yep.
And I think for Tony Khan to get the deal has to be with Gato. If we're going to let Kenny go over there and do his thing, he's going to hold your title, he's going to make some appearances. You have to get back for us for a pay-per-view buy rate. And it's almost for the better. The second time's almost better because now everyone can base what they saw in New Japan Pro Wrestling to the one they're going to be seeing in Forbidden Door. And they're going to be challenging themselves. They're going against each other to really make themselves better. And that's a scary thought. Like you said, what will it take for them to top themselves? Because I know they're going to go out there and try.
Injuries be damned. This rematch 100% will be happening at Forbidden Door. It's too big of a marquee matchup. And, we're sitting here talking about how would they top this. Look at Briscoe's FTR. I mean, that first match, I was like, how in the hell will they ever top this match? And in 2022, they put on what I think is one of the top 3 greatest wrestling trilogies of all time. So it's possible, especially with Omega and Ospreay, man. Just wonder the mysteries of what they can do moving forward. I cannot wait to see what happens.
And I truly think the story is going to be going forward that right now, Will Ospreay may be more athletic. He's younger. He has more, or I should say, I guess, more availability to bring his body to different limits. But Kenny right now is just the smarter wrestler. He's been around. He has the brain for the business. And that's the story they're telling. And they made it quite clear that this is not over. And I think we're going to be seeing more of it. But you mentioned FTR. They lost the tag titles. The writing was on the wall. They've gotten pinned by, whether it be the Guns, they got pinned in AAA by Dragon Lee and Jalisco.
Lost to the Briscoes. They've been pinned all over. They've been giving out W's to everybody else. So this is like their swan song. The end of an era, it really felt like, watching them lose these titles in New Japan. Maybe a little bit sad. And I know Dax is beat up. He has that butt injury right now. The doctors, and all joking aside, didn't want him competing because of that bruise on his butt. So they're extremely beat up. They have not really recovered from that Briscoe match, that double dog collar match that was the classic that you referenced before. I don't know, man. I don't know what happens with FTR, but it definitely felt like the end of something. Whatever that is, it's over, because at one point they were the hottest act in all wrestling, holding all the titles, felt like they were just ready to have that AEW tag titles added to their allotment, and then wrestling the Young Bucks for all the gold on the line. And that's going to be a missed opportunity. We're probably going to look back in 20 years and say, what could have been with the story. And the funny thing is if you listen to Dax's podcast, he alluded to that was the original plan at All Out, was the Bucks and FTR for all the gold. And they didn't go that route, which I know we were pushing for that match on the flagship when that was going down. I don't think that I get what you're saying, like them dropping the titles. There was a little bit of melancholy for me where I'm like, oh man, they were on top. 2022 was their year. But I think this, their contract's up, I believe, in April of this year with Mercedes Moné possibly coming, really close friends with FTR. I think FTR sees the writing on the wall, especially with Vince possibly coming back. And I think they re-sign because the tag team wrestling in AEW is just tops for me right now. And I think they want to hold that title again. I think 2022 was their legacy year where they go and wrestle all over the globe, scoop up all the titles. And now it's their time to create a true legacy in their home promotion, which is AEW.
And I really hope you're right, but I guess we won't know for a few months. You mentioned Vince coming back. We're going to get into that story in one sec. Just some more quick things from wrestling. From Jay White, Tom won the Open Championship. So those things are very important for to walk away. And it's funny that the world title is not what we're talking about today.
Yeah, Tama Tonga winning that neverweight title, and then you got Jay White losing the title to Okada, which Okada winning in Wrestle Kingdom, it just feels like that's what happens.
Yep.
Like he's such he's the, I know everyone always says the Roman Reigns of New Japan, but he's the man. It is funny that all the news, that's one of the low, quick little news hits. It didn't play a bigger role in the fallout of Wrestle Kingdom, but Tama Tonga winning that belt off of Carl Anderson, that kind of signals to me that possibly WWE isn't going to be working long-term with New Japan. Maybe so, but it just seems to me like, let's get this title and clear things up.
So they're going to be having the second night of Wrestle Kingdom. We thought possibly there'd be an AEW involvement. That doesn't seem to be the case. Pro Wrestling Noah is going to be involved. So the same thing that they did last year. It's going to be New Japan Pro Wrestling versus Pro Wrestling Noah, January 21st from the Yokohama Arena. So that's going to be the night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom, weeks removed. So that's going to be the 21st. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a press conference. Actually, there's a press conference that already happened earlier in the weekend to announce some matches, but a little bit of the air left out of the sales for me personally. I thought AEW have involvement. It's just kind of business as usual when it's Pro Wrestling Noah versus New Japan, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen outside of, Mox and Omega this time. It seems like they always take a big star and but they're not. The rumors were AEW is going to be all over night 2, and I don't see that happening either. There might be maybe 1 or 2 people show up, but I doubt it. I think it's just going to be Noah.
And then the team of Kenny and Okada teaming on New Year's Dash the night after was a cool moment. First time they've ever teamed. So that was really cool to see after all their battles in the ring, to see them on the same side. And got to remember, New Year's Dash is an unannounced card. They never announce what's going on there. So for people to have that happen that were there, and for people watching live that saw it was a cool moment to see. So a nice little end cap of what was a really fun Wrestle Kingdom.
Absolutely, man. You want to get into big story number 2?
Let's get into big VKM. Man, we got Vince McMahon returning, and this is something that's been bubbling over for some time now. And I'll let you kind of break down the things that happened with the board members and him being the controlling stakeholder and a lot of the stock that's there. And they're publicly traded, so there's a process that has to happen. And really what it boils down to is Vince McMahon utilizing a power move to assert himself in there. So this can mean one of two things. It could be that Vince wants to be a part of the company again and be able to make decisions in a big capacity, more so than he was behind the scenes because he was obviously on the sidelines. Or what I think to be the case is they're getting ready for a huge sale and someone somewhere is getting ready to take over. So that may mean right before a sale. It might just mean they're going to be stripping down all the assets and figuring out a way to maximize the profit. So all those things that were acquired, all that talent that was acquired, all this new stuff that's happening, that might be a huge change going forward in the next few weeks. So all these people that Vince cut, that Triple H brought back, I'm sure there's going to be a power struggle in more ways than one, but that's a huge thing to think about.
No, yeah. And I know a lot of people are saying that the report says that he doesn't want to alter the creative direction. He doesn't want to take any of the responsibility from Triple H or Stephanie or Nick Khan. It's business as usual on that front. But you have to think, sure, he's not going to take over creative if we believe the reports of what's being said. But even if that's not the case, when you're setting up to sell, you want to cut costs. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility him being just simply a board member, the major shareholder of the company. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we could see some layoffs. But essentially what happened, Vince used his shareholder power to make an amendment to a filing stating that no sale of the company or no television rights deals could be made without him. Meaning because the board, there were a lot of members on the board that did not want him to come back, and they vocalized that to him in an email. Well, Vince kind of pulled rank and did his power move by saying, okay, if you don't want me back, I'm going to veto any television rights deal, which we're moving into a TV rights deal year for them. So if you've got a guy strong arming you saying, hey, I'm not going to allow this company to sell, I'm not going to allow you to get a new TV deal, they were backed into a corner where they had to bring him back. So when he comes back, this is the thing that gets very interesting to me. When he comes back, he not only comes back with himself, he comes back with two of his right-hand men or women, two of the most powerful executives in WWE, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, who were fired by Vince in 2020. They were fired by Vince because they didn't agree with the direction of the network. They wanted network to be sold straight to consumer, be its own entity, and Vince and Nick Khan, well, we'll get to that. Vince believed selling the rights to the network to a Peacock or Netflix, something like that. We see that it went to Peacock. Well, he fires Barrios and Michelle Wilson and brings in Nick Khan. So that's where Nick Khan was brought in. So when he comes back, the two people he fired, he brings with them. To me, that's a power play. That's a power move. I want people, because we've heard the reports where Vince said, I got bad advice. I shouldn't have left to begin with. I wonder who that bad advice came from. I wonder if there's a rift between him and Nick Khan, and he's bringing in the people that he built the network with. And now it just seems like we're getting some HBO Succession type of political moves here to me.
Yeah, the other thing to think about as well is the Wall Street Journal was reporting that possible further allegations are going to be released. And that's another thing that WWE has to think about and everybody has to think about, because that's what Vince comes with at this moment. And Vince, at this point, I mentioned the sale. The market is ever changing with media. As we all know, it's more so than ever. What will be the future of television? What is going to be maximizing the profit for a company like WWE? While Vince is really able to use it, he's a man that's older at this point, that he wants to be able to enjoy the fruits of his labor and the profitability of WWE. Maybe he's looking at it right now that maybe 5 years from now, first of all, he won't be able to cognitively use that money because he's older. And at the same time, you have to think about, where does the media go? Maybe WWE is going to be as profitable like a lot of different entities are. But if they're comparing their net worth to something like NFL or UFC, and they want to be around those big boys, I mean, I feel like you have to deal with the peaks and valleys of what things are worth. And right now, the unsteady nature, they've gone through this before. We've gone with the digital age. It's been changing over time. The streaming stuff, they've been almost trailblazers in that regard, because them taking on the streaming deal, that's a lot of different ways that UFC's used it.
Yep.
Other sporting leagues have used it. So they've been right at the forefront of all of this. So it doesn't seem to play within Vince's wheelhouse to panic. So that's why it's like it goes against everything we're hearing of, like, he wants to sell to maximize profit, because at this point you're already a millionaire 10 times over. So what is the deal with that to want more money at this point? Isn't it about legacy?
It seems ego and legacy is what it seems like to me. He wants to be the man to make that sell. Like the UFC was purchased for $2 million by the Fertittas, and they turn around and sell it for $4 billion.
Right.
He wants to have that come up. He's Don King, man. That is a promoter mentality. I want to be the man for as long as I can be the man. And talking about the two people he brought in, when he brought those two people in, Barrios and Michelle Wilson, with him, they had to release 3 board members to make room for them. Now, those 3 board members that were released were the 3 board members spearheading the Vince McMahon investigation. Yep. So if you don't think there's a power play here trying to sweep all of those Wall Street Journal allegations under the rug, it's totally happening. Read the writing on the wall. And everyone says, I've seen a lot of people reacting to, well, WWE's stock price rose, I believe, up to 24% with the announcement of Vince returning. Now, a lot of people are like, well, that means people are happy he's back. No, what that means, it means when he came back and announced his return, it was with the caveat of, I'm returning to sell this company. Anytime a stock for a major corporation, a public company, is announced to be on the market, the stock rises. But we're in a really weird spot, because we've seen that JP Morgan has been hired to facilitate this sell. There's a bunch of potential investors. We've got even Saudi Arabia's public investment fund on the table. We've got Netflix, Comcast, all of these companies, NBC, even Warner Brothers Discovery is a potential buyer. But the thing that really interests me is, with Vince attached, he is blocking them selling without him being involved. But with him being involved, does it hurt the sell? Are there certain companies that aren't going to want to buy it because he's attached to it? So you're almost in this catch-22. He's not going to allow a sell to go through, but does him being associated with it, with the Wall Street Journal reports attached to him, does that hurt potential buyers from wanting to do business with him?
Absolutely. And then the other thing to consider is what happens when that whole thing that you built, WWE as a whole, history and everything, gets into the hands of someone who's not in the wrestling world. And as much as people want to be critical about how out of touch Vince is, at the end of the day, he's grown up in the wrestling business. So if WWE winds up in the hands of, say, Netflix, and they don't have executives that understand what wrestling is, how much does that change the product? Does it change it for the better? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? That's going to be the discussion we're having. And it's a fascinating thing, because what WWE has become isn't what it was. So it's not like it's just, you go out there and wrestle in a ring, similar to sports. When you buy the UFC, it kind of speaks for itself. It is the competition. But WWE is so much more than just what happens in the ring, and WWE is about the entertainment. So what does it change about what we're seeing as fans? And it's going to be, it's a revolutionary change that we're seeing here, not just with the streaming rights and all this stuff, about what WWE becomes. It's our childhood. It's what we've based our wrestling fandom around, whether we want to lay allegiance elsewhere, we want to be AEW fans first and foremost, or we're a WCW kid. At the end of the day, WWE is right where we all grew up watching. And if that changes, it shifts the whole landscape, because they are the ones that kind of set things in motion to become public space for pro wrestling. And who knows what that's going to look like in, 2 to 3 years from now at this point.
That's a phenomenal point, Ace, because honestly, like, the last thing I want to say before we move into big story number 3 is a WWE without McMahon's in control is very shaky and kind of scary to me. And everyone wants to talk about WCW and Eric Bischoff and the bad booking and what put that company under, bad ratings, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that buried WCW was the fact that they were owned by the Warner.
Yeah.
When that Warner AOL merger went in, they were left on the chopping block. It wasn't Bischoff having a deal with an outside source and then they could move the company. So with WWE possibly being owned by the network that they're on, I think that's super scary for them, because if you get some new higher ups coming in that wants to change the face of the network, they could be left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. And the thing with wrestling right now, WWE just prints money because of all these deals they made. And that's something we mentioned before. You're not guaranteed to get the same sweetheart deals you've gotten in the past with the streaming, and you're just paid up front. Saudi Arabia is paying all this amount of money, but who knows if Netflix gets a hold of WWE? Let's just say Netflix as an example. Are they willing to put away their morals and say, we're going to do business with Saudi Arabia? My guess is no, because the public outrage would be catastrophic for a company that like Netflix. And that money stream that comes in, that's, significant loss, that if you're not getting that, everything changes. So, I mean,
Yep.
we don't know until we know who buys it, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be someone who has a passion for the business, because, we're lucky enough to have someone like Tony Khan, who was a fan growing up, and people want to be critical because he has blinders on a lot of the time. But we're going to see the exact opposite when someone gets their hands on it that really has no emotional attachment to what wrestling is. And it may change completely. They got it as just a franchise. It might as well just be Star Wars. But
Yep.
to them,
I
it's just
agree.
another intellectual property.
I agree completely, man. I have a feeling this story is going to be in multiple big threes moving forward on Wrestling Tonight. We're going to track this story the entire year, I assume. But moving on, let's get into our final big story.
So this was huge as well. And I feel like this is tied, as I mentioned, with the whole Mercedes thing as well. And we've seen it loosen up over the course of time with non-competes and the 90 days things that go on after someone gets their release. But on Thursday, the FTC proposed a rule that would limit an employer's ability to stop their employee from working for a rival or competitor, benefiting workers, and certainly creating an extra layer of intrigue for fans thinking about pro wrestling. So now we have guys, again, we see guys all over the indies. You can even point to PWG this weekend. Takesha's working. Daniel Garcia is working. Guys like that, because progressive minds in wrestling realize it's good to have exposure elsewhere. But the age-old thing that WWE has kind of put in all our brains is that they are exclusive to our company. That may change at this point, and we see all these guys going back and forth with this modern day wrestling war where people are going from one side to the other, and it's good for fans and it's good for intrigue and it's good for ratings, but people are waiting. We may not have to wait anymore. We may not have to wait 90 days for these guys to get in there. So a guy like Malachi Black, if he requests his release, he can immediately show up the next week somewhere else, and that is absolutely insane to think about. But this is going to set precedent going forward.
Oh yeah, the fact that, I mean, he could show up the next night. He could be on Raw on Monday and show up on Dynamite on Wednesday. The Federal Trade Commission, this proposal covers not just employees, but independent contractors, interns, volunteers, other workers. Non-competes block workers from freely switching jobs. It deprives them of higher wages, better working conditions, deprives businesses of a talent pool that they need to build and expand on. FTC agency chair Lena Khan, there's a lot of cons in these businesses, man. She stated, by ending this practice, the FTC's proposed rule would promote greater dynamism. I can't say that word. Dynamism, I guess that's a word. Innovation and healthy competition. So at first, when this report came out, I was like, man, this could change the landscape of wrestling. This is kind of Monday Night Wars when you saw Rick Rude showing up and Lex Luger showing up out of the blue due to just people not being on top of non-competes and all of that. But Lance Storm floated an idea that I thought was a very shisty loophole that a WWE could do. If non-competes were banned by the Federal Trade Commission, what they could do, it would just mean they would have to get more strategic in their firings. Now, if this was a Mandy Rose type of firing, where something came out of the blue and they wanted to part ways with her immediately due to like public perception of the issue, then I think it would be more of an issue with the non-compete. But if it's someone they're just wanting to cut costs with, what they could do, they could have these people sit at home for 90 days and then fire them.
Yeah, 100%. And then, I mean, right now we're 180 days out from when this is ruled. So if this is ruled today, it will take several months to go into effect. But when they're making this rule, they're not really thinking specifically about pro wrestling. Of course, we're putting that lens on it for them. I really can't think of really any negatives for the pro wrestling fan or the pro wrestlers when you're looking at from that landscape. But it makes, I would say it makes the promotions have to think clearly about making their employees happy. And that's what unionization made for workplaces and all this stuff, where wrestling has come a long way as far as guys getting wages that are fair. And you can thank guys like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash for negotiating contracts that are guaranteed. But this is just another step in that right direction to your body, your likeness, all this, your ability to compete. That is how you make your money. So at this point, if they're being held out of doing that because they are getting released or they are not happy in the workplace, this at this point eliminates that. Now WWE is almost forced to make sure that their valuable assets are happy. So a team like FTR can't be just buried by DX on the Raw Reunion show and then left to sit on the bench, hope they cool off and nobody remembers their name 90 days later. While they have some momentum, while they have some steam, they're able to go over to the next whatever promotion it is. And we're not just talking about AEW, it could be Impact, it could be New Japan. And this is just fun for wrestling fans, and I can't think of a negative.
No, I can't either. I think it'll at least, even if there are loopholes like Lance Storm kind of alluded to, I think this does make it a little more difficult. And the big thing for me, it allows an independent contractor to be treated as an independent contractor. WWE likes to call their employees independent contractors, but they don't give them the freedom that an independent contractor has.
Right.
So it's kind of a bullshit moniker to throw on a wrestler. Like you have no freedom. You have pretty much the shackles of a corporate employee, but you don't get the benefits of a corporate employee. So it's kind of a bullshit thing. But I'm with you. I think if this passes, this is right now the Federal Trade Commission, this is just a proposal, but it looks like it's going to move forward, but it'll be something that we should keep our eyes on for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing that could change, though, going forward, not just before we move ahead to quick hitters, is, we talk about different promotions working together and relationship they have. We could have a talent-driven forbidden door that gets started where you may got guys that want to work together. And I'm used, for example, a guy like Roman Reigns. Maybe he wants so badly to work with Jay White, and he's gonna lead the way on that and figure out a way to make it happen instead of waiting for WWE and New Japan. Yeah, you can have your own. You can have your own mindset about where you want things to go, and then you're going to have to just tell your employer what you're doing instead of the other way around. And I think that's good because it also sparks the creative juices in all of these guys instead of it just being promotion led.
It shifts a little bit of that power into the wrestlers' hands, which we are big proponents of. I'm all about, wrestlers being able to make as much as they can. That's why companies like AEW are good, because it offers at least something else to drive that asking price up. But with the three big stories out of the way, let's get into quick hitters.
All right, here we are, quick hitters. These are the news stories that we're going to be getting to you really quick, so little bite-sized pieces. We missed this from last week, Chad. Nick Aldis is now a free agent. We don't know where he's going to be showing up, but he is certainly someone to have on your radar because he is a talented dude that's willing to go out there carrying the weight of being a champion. That can't be dismissed, so I expect him to do big things in the coming year.
Yeah, he pretty much carried NWA on his back. The guy has an old school flair for the promo. He's a body guy, Triple H. He's definitely like a Triple H type of guy. His work as Magnus in TNA was great. I was a big fan of his run in early NWA. I think he's someone to watch. I think he's even a possibility for the Rumble. We'll see. But I think he lands somewhere big. I would say AEW or WWE have their eyes on Nick Aldis.
So we also have CM Punk is all over social media. He made his first post today with it being appropriately being Larry. He was also highlighting on his Instagram story his 2022 YouTube views, merchandise sales, pretty much letting everybody know that he was valuable to AEW. And there's word today that he wants so badly to make it work. So again, some momentum coming from CM Punk's camp to let differences be put aside and have them work a program with the Bucks, or just bring Punk back into the fold. So this story is ever changing.
Yeah, and this is just a little nugget from last week's story, big story number one with Punk and Dax. Just hearing these reports with, I believe it was Uncle Dave who came out and said that Punk wants to come back. That's why you're seeing all of these every Wednesday night. He's tagging. He's not being a cynical asshole like he can be. Everything seems to be very positive. He even posted a gym shot. He's back in the gym. Ace, what do you think? Do you think the air is changing? Do you think there's a possibility this guy could be back in AEW in 2023?
It certainly doesn't hurt when you're doing things like that. And like we said, time heals all wounds, and money can also make it easier to swallow a bitter pill of apologizing to somebody. So I wouldn't say it's completely going to happen, but it's getting more and more likely, and we'll see. I mean, wrestling, you never say never.
Knowing absolutely nothing about the internal situation with this, I would bet money Tony Khan wants him back. Punk wants to come back, but Tony Khan also doesn't want to upset the elite. So I think there's some massaging going on. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, man. I know we say that a lot, but there's so many compelling stories in wrestling right now.
Yeah, and I know that, not to get too far into it, but with Tony Khan hugging, I think it was Zay Jones from the Jacksonville Jaguars last night, his phone fell on the field and people were making, going through his text messages in meme form and saying, like, text to CM Punk, and this is what it said. And just like late night text to CM Punk. I love you. Remember what we had going into the summer, and it's funny stuff. So anyway, moving on here, more at AEW. The Iron Man match between MJF and Danielson seems to be on paper at Revolution, assuming that all the matches that Danielson has in the upcoming 5 weeks, he wins. So upcoming this Wednesday is a banger against Takeshita. So I can't wait for that. But if that does happen, this will be MJF's first ever Iron Man match. It'll be Danielson's third ever such match, and the first to be beyond 30 minutes. So huge feather in the cap. We're assuming that MJF's going to continue this run. I think we're all in agreement that MJF's run is not going to end in March of 2023. But what a win in an Iron Man match against someone like Bryan Danielson. This is going to be a fun match to watch. This will be the first, I believe, Iron Man match in AEW history, aside from, I think that might be it. Unless Pac and Omega had a 30-minute, I believe, on Dynamite.
Yeah.
The first 60-minute.
Yeah, they've had a couple go to time limit draws, but nothing where it was pre-planned. You're going the full 60. This is great storytelling, man. For a major heel holding a title to somehow weasel out a win in an Iron Man match against the best wrestler in the world. What a feather in this young guy's cap. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. I love that they're just running it up to the beginning of February with Danielson going 5-0, and that still gives us 3 or 4 Dynamites to really start working the story beyond just the wrestling matches. I was wondering how they were going to stretch this story all the way to Revolution. I think this is a great way to do it.
This year's WWE Money in the Bank will take place at the O2 Arena in London, England. We mentioned Nick Aldis. That'd be a great spot for him to maybe have a prominent spot. But London and UK were the hosts of a pay-per-view with Clash at the Castle, so making some headway. And Money in the Bank's become one of the big four. I think at this point, probably knocking out Survivor Series. But Money in the Bank's a huge event. London gets it. The crowd will be hot. Should be a fun watch in the summer.
Yeah, that's a big arena to do that in. I was kind of shocked because I know there were reports that came out that Triple H was wanting to move Money in the Bank back to WrestleMania as a gimmick match instead of an event. So I was shocked when they stayed with this. I like it.
So we have some notes about the Young Bucks contract coming up, but according to Meltzer, AEW contacted them and wants to start negotiations, but there have been no negotiations as of today, and they're certainly not close to a deal. So we got to get a deal done with the Bucks and AEW. Maybe in some weird world, Punk's there, but the Bucks go elsewhere. That had me thinking about it, but I see the Bucks never leaving AEW at this point. But who knows what happened with Cody? So at this point, who knows?
Who knows is right. I think they stay there, but I do think Tony, this reaching out, wanting to get them locked in, I think that is a strategic move of wanting to get them locked in before pushing Punk's return. Because if Tony was to push for Punk's return and their contracts are still kind of up in the air, you might get into a sticky situation there.
We also had Jake Roberts on his podcast, The Snake Pit, saying that he wants to be working with younger talent. So I liked so much more. I wish AEW would use me in a position where I was helping people with interviews, because I do know how to do that. And I can certainly help a few people that are struggling. We saw great work with Lance Archer and Jake the Snake. He's a huge source of information in the back. So yeah, I agree with Jake. He should be being used more effectively.
Yeah, especially with young kids in the promos. I mean, Jake is one of the all-time promo kings, so I think that would be a smart move.
We had the new look AEW Dynamite that everybody covered in depth. You guys on the flagship, the wrap-up guys talked about it as well, but it certainly was different. It wasn't catastrophically different in a lot of people's minds. I think they were predicting something to look a lot more drastic, but yeah, it was just a big change for them. Looks more professional, looks more polished, and I think we'll leave it at that at this point.
Yeah, it just looks bigger. I think it looks bigger to me. I love that they kept the guardrails. I don't want them to go the route of WWE in that regard, but the stage and the lighting packages and the graphics packages, I think looks more slick and pro.
And the two last things here in quick hitters, Bailey and Naomi traveled to Japan to support Sasha New Japan Pro Wrestling. So you guys can see those pictures on Instagram, posing with FTR. Really cool to see. And then we got Road Dogg opening his mouth again, talking about AJ Styles being a better wrestler than Bret Hart. Apples and oranges, in my opinion. They're both great wrestlers in their own way, but I think he's just doing it to be a lightning rod of controversy because I think that's where he's loving and residing at this point.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, like I used to be so big on, Conrad's podcast, and I still listen to some wrestler podcasts, but the more and more you hear an old school wrestler on a podcast, the more it's just, you're playing the Jim Cornette game. I can tell you're saying things to stir the pot. A lot of these comments like Booker T, Road Dogg, Eric Bischoff, all these guys who drop these clickbaity, blurbs, they just kind of go in one ear and out the other for me.
So going through some of the results here, New Japan Pro Wrestling New Year's Dash, we just saw from last week, the night after Wrestle Kingdom. Main part, Jay White challenged Hikuleo to a loser leaves Japan match. Mentioned Kenny and Okada teaming together. So if you're a diehard, watch the match, but there's, not much storytelling going there. You guys can probably just tune in, Battle of the Valley, know exactly what's going on. We have PWG Battle of Los Angeles. Full disclosure, recording Sunday night. They are having the finals right now. So we'll get to you guys next week with who won. You guys can check our socials. I'm rooting for Commander myself. Leo Rush couldn't make it due to injury at Wrestle Kingdom. That nasty nose injury that he was really busted up with finished the match, but he couldn't make the PWG show. He was replaced by New Texas Pro Champion Brian Keith.
The Underground King. I love Brian Keith, man.
So from AEW on Dynamite, Darby won his second TNT championship. Really good match, good moment in his hometown in Seattle. It was awesome. And then Starks defeated Jericho.
That. Yeah, and Starks getting a big win over a legend. I love the way they're building that. Those were both really fun matches.
So no rest for the weary for Darby, defending his TNT championship against Mike Bennett. Didn't catch Rampage myself, saw the results, but from what I heard, didn't miss much, but quality matches.
Quality match. And Mike Bennett, man, people need to give this guy some love. I think Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, do they have a lot of that X factor, it factor, pizzazz to them? Not necessarily, but guys like FTR and a host of other wrestlers were pulling to get these guys into the company because you know what they are? They're solid workers. They always put on good matches.
Speaking of solid workers, Battle of the Belts 5 took place right after Rampage. All really good matches. All champs retained. So Jade, the Acclaimed, and also Orange Cassidy all retained their championships. So again, Battle of the Belts non-eventful. This is one of the New Year's resolutions I think we all have, and I think you said it on the flagship. Let's make Battle of the Belts mean something going forward. It doesn't feel like Clash of Champions back when WCW did it. There needs to be some shift in the mindset for when they move forward to it.
I will say that Jade finish on Sky Blue was chef's kiss, man. The way she got her in that Jaded, I was very impressed.
So GCW Save Me aired last night. It was an okay show. Cool crowd in Chicago. They were hot for it. Hate Club defeated East West Express. Thrushy defeated Mason's Mercenaries. Actually, it was a no contest. So forgive me there. So Thrushy and Mason Mercenary, which was not a match that I expected to go the way it did. So if you guys check it out, it was non-eventful. Homicide defeated John Wayne Murdoch. And the Mestizos defended their tag titles against the Bang Bros and retained and held on to them as expected. So GCW put on a quality show. Not their best effort, but it was definitely a good outing.
Yeah, just a solid GCW show. No big major moments coming out of it, but always a good time, GCW.
Nick Gage with a plancha in the main event too, by the way. So if you guys looking for almost a 60-plus-year-old man going up there and almost hurting himself, check it out.
Yeah.
So you had NWA Power, which, by the way, is on YouTube again. So that's a huge and nice change. The Champion Series has their finalists with Team Tyrus and Team Rock and Roll, which will happen on NWA Power on January 31st. They called this the season finale, and the NWA seemed to indicate there's going to be no more episodes until then. So we'll see what else they go with. Pay-per-views will still be on Fight going forward.
Yeah, I'm excited. I hope, I know there was a lot of heat. There was a big falling out in their brain trust between, Billy Corgan and Nick Aldis, but I'm leery of their future just because so many integral people that made pre-pandemic NWA really awesome are gone, and it's just on Billy now. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
So moving towards Impact Wrestling, we had a great promo segment between Scott D'Amore and Bully Ray hyping Hard to Kill's championship match, which happens. We'll get to that in the week ahead. Building up a really good pay-per-view. It's become one of their big four. So if you're an Impact fan, this is one of those events you circle on your calendar to really sit down and watch. It's a pretty stacked card.
Yeah, I watched this segment. I thought it was, people can shit on Bully Ray. You know, I know he says, going back to what I said about wrestlers on podcasts, I used to listen to Busted Open religiously, and he would say controversial things, but I think he always believed what he was saying. But Bully Ray, he's got the TNA history. He's a great stick man. One of the better stick men in the business. Him and Scott D'Amore going back and forth. He can sell an event. And I think having a big bad guy like Bully to face off against Josh Alexander, kind of your golden boy, I think that's good for the company.
Absolutely. And moving towards WWE, we had a decent Raw for the first of the year. Bianca Belair retained her championship against Alexa Bliss via DQ. We had Alexa Bliss throw a hissy fit. So we're looking for answers with that, with the Bray Wyatt connection. We got Uncle Howdy involvement. There was some go away heat for Bianca, which is something to watch, where people were booing her, which I was shocked about because I didn't even have any inkling that this could be the case. And maybe some WWE fans can chime in and let me know if this is something that's been brewing. But Bianca getting some John Cena level heat when John Cena was getting people sick of him.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too, but I was a big fan of Bianca as a heel in NXT. I would like to see them go back that route, but I don't know if WWE has it in them to pull that trigger.
Austin Theory retained his U.S. championship against Seth Rollins in what was a really, really good match. Referee distraction, low blow, A-Town down win for Austin Theory, and there seems to be some momentum building in his way after what was a really bad summer for Austin Theory. So I'm happy to see him have some momentum behind him. And what's new? Seth Rollins loses.
Right. I mean, the consummate guy putting over people. I can't hate on him. I think always the groom, never the bride for Seth Rollins. I feel bad for the guy. I feel like if he was in any other era, he puts me in the mind of Randy Orton to John Cena. It's like Randy Orton would have been the man if he wasn't in the John Cena era. And I feel like Rollins is in that same boat with Roman Reigns, but Austin Theory rocking that heel beard.
Oh, yeah.
He felt like a star, man. He felt bigger than he has in the past.
So you mentioned Roman. Speaking of Roman on SmackDown, main thing to pull away from that is the tensions with the Bloodline and Sammy. You had Roman lashing out on Sammy and then apologizing later in the night. So rumor has it we're going to be getting KO and Sammy versus the Usos at WrestleMania. Do they shift from that plan and have Sammy do something different? Probably not. I think at some point we're going to see Roman turn on Sammy, and it's going to be really sad.
Yeah. Pull out your hankies, everybody, because there's going to be some tears flowing when that happens. But man, what a way to make just a super baby face. I look forward to that story whenever they pull the trigger, however they do between Roman and Sammy. There's something there that could be truly special.
All right, so let's move over to Dave's Raves. Let's talk about his match of the week and the performers of the week. Here's my dude, Dave Meltzer. Match of the week is quite obvious. I think you guys probably could have predicted it. Ospreay, Omega from the Tokyo Dome. It's the second highest rated match on his scale ever. Gave it 6.25 stars. It's the highest rating since we saw 7 stars awarded to Okada and Kenny at Dominion. So June 2018. I would have, the way he was talking about in Wrestling Observer Radio, I thought for sure he was going to give it higher than that, but 6.25 stars, I think, is more than generous.
Oh man. I mean, when he goes over 5, it's like, wow, you just broke the mold. I was with you. I was listening to Observer Radio and I was like, what is this guy going to drop on this match? Because I thought he was going 7.5 or something.
Yeah. And obviously his performers of the week, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, just to mention, and you guys can read the newsletter, it dropped on Saturday. A lot of good stuff in there about the Vince things going on. So check that out. But as the other match he really noted here was from last night at the Battle of Los Angeles PWG, Takeshita and Oku, he felt was match of the night, which is high praise. Fans were throwing money in the ring like they do at Mexico shows, and they were all over it. Takeshita felt like a real star. He also talked about Commander. He posted a picture of Commander on Instagram. So Uncle Dave with Commander right there. So I've become pretty friendly with Commander on social media. He's a up and coming star. He is one of those guys that I saw in GCW for the first time and he caught my eye. He feels like he's going to have the buzz that Penta and Ray Phoenix had going into 2018. So, I mean, he can't be denied at this point.
Nobody can walk the ropes, run the ropes like Commander. When I saw Commander, I was like, man, this is like, if you're really following those it factor luchadors, I'm thinking Rey Mysterio, I'm thinking Ray Phoenix, and the next one for me is probably Commander. This guy has something special.
100%. And I think looking at someone like Commander, that would be someone you can circle to be in New Japan, potentially in Impact. And then AEW has to be thinking, not that they don't have their own luchas going forward, but WWE desperately needs someone like that. I mean, him and Dragon Lee could tear it up if they want to let them do it on the main roster.
Absolutely, man.
So let's move ahead to the week ahead and get you guys ready for the upcoming week of wrestling. Man, we got some good stuff coming up for the week ahead. Let's start with AEW Dynamite on Wednesday the 11th. Most notably, Moxley and Page going at it, and Danielson and Takeshita, two huge matches to circle on your calendar. Sit down, grab your popcorn. Those guys are going to go at it, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm huge on Takeshita. I know Uncle Dave is too, but if you listen to the flagship, me and Sneed have been saying this guy has star potential all over him. I think that match, a lot of people, casuals, will probably see Takeshita and be like, who is that? They're not going to get hyped for it. But if you're a casual, get hyped for it. Danielson Takeshita is going to be a special kind of match.
We have no matches announced for Rampage yet. I'm sure we're going to get a whole bunch thrown on us with those Rampage commercials and Dynamite. So stay tuned to the flagship when you guys want your updates about what's happening on the 13th for Rampage.
Excalibur is going to rattle off at hyper speed everything that's happening on Rampage.
We do also have GCW Don't Talk to Me on 120 from Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's coming up. It's not next week, but just get ready for it. It's going to be headlined by Vikingo versus Janela going forward. And I think they have the rights to show it on TV this time.
Vikingo, Janela, sign me up. Huge on Vikingo.
We didn't put it in the news, but he was banged up at PWG. They had to end the match quickly. So I'm not sure. No updates as of yet. And this was just fan conversation on the forums, as Hawk would say. But Vikingo was banged up and they put the X sign up and they went home quickly. So just watch out for that. Hopefully he's okay. So for NWA, we have no shows until 131's Champion Series. So we now know NWA Power is going to be put on TV going forward 6:05 Eastern on Tuesday nights. We're also going to have NWA USA airing debuts at noon every Saturday on the channel. So that will happen this first Saturday. So check it out. Pay-per-views remain on Fight, but 2 streaming shows is huge for NWA going forward.
Yeah, man. A lot more space for wrestlers to ply their trade.
And PWG, we're going to get the results, like I mentioned, of Battle of Los Angeles. Who takes home the trophy? You guys will see it all over. I will post who wins. So go to my social media at Acefield Retro to find out who wins. Of course, Raw tonight, no announced matches, but we do have an advertisement that Alexa was going to be explaining her outburst towards Bianca. SmackDown on Friday, we get further Rumble build. We got Gunther versus Braun for the IC title, and we have Sammy versus Kevin Owens. So 2 really good matches on Friday night as we move closer to the Rumble.
Man, Sammy and KO, they just can't. They can't. It's like Brokeback Mountain. I can't quit you. You know, like we can't move away from those 2 guys. Not to say it's a bad thing. They always show out, but man.
So I want to give some shine to this, and that's why we're going to end our week ahead here. Impact Hard to Kill is going to be this Friday from Center Stage in Atlanta, main evented by Josh Alexander and Bully Ray for the world title. And that's not where it ends. The card is deep. If you guys are looking to tune back in, if you haven't watched Impact in a while, this is the time to tune in. Well worth your money. You could just dive in and enjoy good wrestling. It's on a Friday night, so I know there's Rampage, I know there's SmackDown, but pop those on your DVR and buy it.
Yeah, man. And I think you also have Jordan Grace, who's, man, she's transformed into an absolute killer. She's defending her title in a retirement match against Mickie James. So that's a very interesting match on that card as well.
And I know, you know, the Major Brothers are on the card. Jonathan Gresham's on the card. Impact is sneaky loaded. So if you guys are not, if you haven't tuned in, it's not your daddy's Impact from a couple years back. So check it out, guys.
Yeah, it's a true alternative. If you're looking for an alternative and you're one of those people that thinks AEW is a little too much like WWE, maybe Impact's your bag. Go give them a go.
That's all we got for you guys. We did better than last week. We're at 105. 145 is last week. Maybe we trim it down to an hour next week.
Hey, 105, pretty impressive. We trimmed about 35 minutes out of it, guys. Hopefully this isn't just bombarding you with information, but I feel like we covered some cool stuff.
Absolutely. And you guys just stay tuned for social media. Like you said, follow at Turnbuckle Tavern for all your wrestling needs. Follow me at Acefield Retro. I'll follow the Pod Foundation as well for all your updates, whether it be Extra Cooler, Chick Foley, coming down the aisle, Turnbuckle Tavern. We have you covered at all angles of wrestling. So if it happens in wrestling, you could find it on the Pod Foundation. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. And check out all of the streaming shows on YouTube. If you're here with us on YouTube, be sure to give some love to the other shows. Every night of the week, for the most part, there's something worth watching. If you can't do it live, go back and watch the replays. They're always there for you to check out. It's fun. Become a part of the community at the Tavern. Like, become a regular.
Absolutely. And just to give a little plug for myself, Shot Nostalgia happening on Friday. It's a really good show. We're going to be covering two things: Gangsta's Paradise and WrestlePalooza. It's the debut of Steve Austin in ECW, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio. A lot of good stuff on the plate. I don't know how we're going to keep it under 2 hours. We will see how it happens. It's so much to cover. Also, too, right after Shot Nostalgia, I'll be interviewing on a Visit to the Tavern a great wrestler, the Culture Bear, Osito. So that'll be airing directly after Shot Nostalgia. The audio will be dropping the night after. So if you guys are looking for just the audio, just look forward to that. Following Shot Nostalgia's drop in the morning. And then you guys, if you're in the local area, Deer Park, New York, Sky's the Limit is happening this Saturday. I'll be ring announcing. So great card, headlined by Gabriel Sky and Ken Broadway for the Remarkable Heavyweight Championship, crowning the first ever Riot champion in a 6-way ladder match. Going to be defending, crowning the first ever tag team champions, Fight or Die versus Miracle Generation. Come out and support Remarkable Wrestling. And you're not going to want to miss it, man. We got something really, really special happening in February. I can't tell you what it is, but let's just say you do not want to miss. You're going to want to be in the building.
That's awesome. And you got KG on the call, right? For Sky's the Limit?
Yes, for IWTV, KG and struggles from other indie scenes. So a dream team, if you will. So Kevin Gill being there is
love Kevin Gill.
It's going to be fun to work with him.
Yeah, big Kevin Gill fan. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back again next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep it snug, keep it stiff, and always support pro wrestling.